Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive today into a summary of a really significant book, Paramahansa Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi.
Yeah, it's definitely a book that gets talked about. Our source here, this YouTube summary, points out how important it's been for some really well-known people. Like Steve Jobs apparently read it every single year.
Wow, every year.
Yeah, and many other successful folks credit it with helping them in some way.
That definitely catches your attention, doesn't it? And the summary mentions Yogananda himself felt it was important. He actually predicted it would change millions of lives, act as his messenger after he was gone.
Which is quite a claim, but I mean, for a lot of readers, it seems to have really landed that way.
So our plan here is to dig into this summary, really pull out the key ideas, the lessons, and maybe some of those fascinating details that make it stick with people.
And the summary covers a lot of ground. You get his life story, these incredible spiritual experiences he supposedly had, core concepts like reincarnation, self-realization.
Plus practical stuff too, right? Like advice on success and willpower, dealing with fear, meditation.
Exactly. It's quite a mix.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. The man himself, Yogananda. What does the summary tell us about his background, his journey?
Well, right off the bat, the source says he was born Mukunda Lal Ghosh. That was in 1893 in Gorakhpur, into a Bengali Hindu family.
Okay.
And his father, interestingly, was described as a scholar, someone who knew the sacred texts, like the Bhagavad Gita. So that kind of environment was there early on.
And the summary mentions the guru-shishya relationship, the teacher-student thing.
It really emphasizes that, yeah. In Indian culture, as the source explains it, that relationship is seen as crucial for, like, spiritual evolution, even more important than family ties sometimes.
That framing helps understand his later path, I guess.
Definitely. And what's really striking in the summary are these accounts of his very early spiritual inclinations. Like, it mentions him recalling a past life on Mount Kailash when he was only 2.
2 years old. Seriously.
Yeah. And apparently he didn't talk much until he was maybe 4 or 5. And there's this other story about him being sort of forced out of his body briefly when he was 8. It paints this picture of someone deeply connected to, well, another realm from a very young age.
Forced out of his body at 8. That's
Oh,
a great thing.
yeah.
Yeah, that's something else. So it makes sense he'd be looking for a spiritual teacher, a guru.
Exactly. The summary points out he was always searching for that guide. He finally met his guru, Sri Yukteswar Giri, when he was 17.
And had he heard of him before?
That's the interesting part. The summary notes he had heard about Sri Yukteswar several times before they actually met. Almost like, destiny leading him there.
So what was Sri Yukteswar's teaching like?
According to this summary, the focus was really on balance, developing body, mind, and soul together, not just one aspect. He taught through scientific practices and stressed applying lessons in everyday life. He wanted his students well-rounded.
Did that include regular education too?
It did, yeah. The summary mentions Yogananda actually graduated from Serampore College, a British university, back in 1915. It was after that, on Sri Yukteswar's instruction, that he took his monastic vows, the sannyasi vows, and became Swami Yogananda Giri.
And that really kicked off his mission, bringing these teachings westward.
That's what the summary highlights. He's credited with bringing Kriya Yoga to America to the West, really for the first time.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he found people very receptive there. Describe them as kind and divine souls.
The summary also touches on meetings with other, well, extraordinary figures, doesn't it? Other saints.
Oh, yeah, those stories are amazing. They add this whole layer of wonder. It mentions people like Muzaffar Hussain, who could supposedly appear and disappear at will.
Wow.
And the famous Tiger Swami story, the one about wrestling a tiger.
I've heard of that one. How does the summary present it?
It implies it wasn't just physical strength, but more like a demonstration of divine will calming the animal, using inner power, essentially.
Incredible. Any others mentioned?
Yeah, it briefly mentions Master Mahasaya, who apparently left his family to become a full-time follower, and Sankarananda, who could supposedly travel without needing any kind of vehicle. These accounts, as the source presents them, really emphasize the kind of extraordinary possibilities described in the book.
It definitely paints a reality that's, well, quite different from the everyday. Okay, let's shift from his life story to some of the core spiritual ideas the summary pulls out. Reincarnation is a big one.
Right, and the summary presents it less as just a belief and more like part of a cosmic evolutionary process. It tries to make it understandable with specific examples.
What about that idea of going backward? Like, could a human come back as an animal?
The source suggests that would usually be devolution, step back. It wouldn't normally happen unless there were some very specific lessons that, for whatever reason, had to be learned in that form. But the general direction is upward evolution.
Got it. And then there's the really central concept, self-realization, Atmabodh.
This is maybe the key takeaway this summary focuses on. The idea that God isn't just out there somewhere, but is actually in everything. In your body, your mind, your soul. It's all permeated by the divine.
So what does that mean practically?
Well, the implication from the source is that you don't need to, beg God for things you think you lack, because that divine presence, that abundance, is already inherent within you and all around you. The real work is realizing that presence. It's about continuous self-improvement to uncover what's already there.
And how does realizing that change how we relate to love, for instance?
The summary makes a distinction between what it calls ordinary love and divine love. Ordinary love is portrayed as, selfish. It's rooted in getting your own desires met.
Okay.
Divine love, on the other hand, is described as completely unconditional. It's limitless, unchanging. It's a reflection of that universal divine presence we were just talking about.
That's a huge shift in perspective. Moving from seeking fulfillment outside to recognizing the divine inside, and then expressing that unconditionally. Okay, let's see how the summary connects these big ideas to practical living. It mentions living with purpose.
Yeah, Udeshamarena, as the source terms it.
Yeah.
The basic idea seems to be that when you gain a deeper spiritual understanding, it gives you inner strength. You start to see this underlying unity in everything in nature. And recognizing that unity naturally helps you live with a clearer sense of purpose.
Does this connect to consciousness states?
It does. The summary outlines a few. There's the normal consciousness in sleep, then a state where your mind feels kind of separate from your body and breath. And then there's this superconscious state, which supposedly frees you from the illusion that you are just your body, or that your existence depends solely on breathing.
Okay, so if consciousness isn't just tied to the body, that leads directly to the next point the summary makes. You are responsible for your thoughts.
Exactly. And if you're responsible for them, the source points out, then logically you have the power to change them. Your inner world isn't set in stone. You can cultivate different thoughts.
There's also a principle about service. Being in service.
Service me on. Yeah, the summary contrasts this with, people trying to get ahead by putting others down. It emphasizes that the human mind itself is seen as a divine spark. So being in service to others is kind of like honoring that divine spark within them and within yourself too.
That idea of the mind being a divine spark, it feels connected to how the source explains the law of attraction.
It definitely seems linked. The principle laid out is that whatever your mind genuinely trusts and focuses on with real intensity, that starts to manifest in your life.
So it's not just wishful thinking.
Apparently not, according to the summary. It suggests your consistent daily mental habits act like magnets. Good habits attract favorable circumstances, people, conditions. Bad habits attract unfavorable ones. It's about the sustained energy and focus of your thoughts.
And how does the summary define success? It seems broader than just money or career.
Much broader. Safalta, as the source calls it, includes spiritual thoughts, good health, prosperity, yes, but also creative ideas. It really stresses the mind-body connection your body follows your thinking. So constant negative thoughts, even with occasional positive ones sprinkled in, won't build real success.
But right thinking can help even when things look bleak.
That's the idea. Right thinking helps you navigate towards your goals, even through darkness.
Yeah.
But the ultimate measure, the summary insists, isn't the external stuff.
What is it then?
Happiness and peace of mind. That's described as the greatest treasure you can possess. Losing that peace is seen as far worse than losing health or wealth. So real success seems to be about combining God's power, that inner divine potential, with your own focused efforts for constructive aims.
Okay, so how do you tap into that power and direct your efforts? The summary talks a lot about willpower.
Icha Shakti. Yeah, this is presented as absolutely crucial. It goes hand in hand with positive thinking, but it's not passive. It requires continuous active effort. The summary goes so far as to call the mind the creator of everything.
Wow.
And it says you need to focus that creative power using persistent, dynamic willpower on what you want to achieve. That's what brings real results, apparently.
So it implies you can actually take control of your life, your destiny.
That's the suggestion. When you learn to use willpower constructively, you gain a measure of control over your destiny. But, and this is important, the summary adds a condition. It requires inner calmness.
Calmness.
Yes, and a deep certainty that the goals you're striving for are genuinely right for you. Without that inner alignment and calm, the willpower might not be effective or could even be misused.
Makes sense. So what gets in the way of using willpower effectively? The summary points to fear.
Dar. Yeah, fear is painted as a major enemy of dynamic willpower. It's described as something that literally drains your life energy, paralyzes you, weakens the body.
So it's not helpful, like a warning system.
Not in this view. The summary presents it as actively harmful, diminishing your will and your potential. It argues fear doesn't actually protect you, it just weakens you.
And it affects you physically, too.
Definitely. It says fear sends negative messages through the brain that disrupt your mind and even physical processes like digestion. The antidote offered, faith in God.
Faith eliminates fear.
That's the assertion. Faith supposedly eliminates fear, allowing you to see obstacles not as terrifying blocks, but as like stimulants for spiritual growth. And analyzing failures, learning from them, helps build resilience instead of letting fear take over.
Okay, moving on from fear. Initiative. Creativity.
Pahal Kanya Initiatilina.
Uh.
Right. This is presented as an inherent creative spark within you, a reflection of the infinite creator, actually.
So everyone has this.
That's the implication. It's the power to create something new or to do existing things in new, better ways. And understanding you have this power, the summary suggests, opens up possibilities. It shows that things that seem impossible might actually be achievable.
The summary also touches on seeing God in everyone, forgiveness.
Yeah, and overcoming your own feelings instead of making excuses. These all tie back to that shift from focusing on external problems or blaming others towards taking internal responsibility and recognizing that shared divinity.
And habits play a big role, too.
Add a day. Yes, habits are described as powerful forces that control much of your life and influence how quickly you achieve success. Again, it comes back to those daily mental habits acting like magnets, attracting specific outcomes.
So it's about conscious effort, cultivating the right habits, directing your will. But the summary also mentions divine will. How is that different from personal willpower?
Divine will ki shakti. This is presented as something much bigger, boundless, limitless. It works through natural laws, yes, but also through seemingly miraculous ways.
Like what?
The source suggests it's capable of things we'd consider impossible, changing destiny, bringing the dead back to life, moving mountains, even creating entire solar systems. It's that ultimate creative power of the universe.
Which connects to the idea of abundance. How does the summary say you achieve that?
It links abundance directly back to willpower, interestingly. It states that all powers reside within your will, making both spiritual and material gifts potentially boundless.
So the key is?
The key step, according to the source, is to actively remove thoughts of fear, lack, and poverty from your mind. You need to cultivate and maintain the consciousness that the universal mind, or God, is perfect, complete, and eternally abundant. There's no actual lack in the universe.
But it's not just about thinking positively about abundance, is it? There's action involved.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The summary advises trusting in God, maintaining that consciousness of abundance, while also putting in your best, most focused effort in your work or goals.
And then?
When you combine that inner state with outer action, the summary suggests unexpected help often shows up. Synchronicities happen. Your desires find ways to be fulfilled. And that deep confidence, that ability to manifest, is built through concentration and meditation.
Which seems to be the cornerstone practice recommended throughout the summary. Meditation and concentration.
Dhyan or Brishian. Yes, it's heavily emphasized. The summary argues that without meditation, your mind is just scattered, disconnected from your deeper, higher consciousness.
How does it help?
It describes meditation as being like a mirror for your own mind. It allows buried emotions, uncomfortable feelings to surface, so you can actually acknowledge them, release them, and heal them.
So sitting with discomfort is part of it.
A key part, it seems. Sitting with that discomfort during meditation is framed as a way to confront and overcome fear and let go of the things that are holding you back in life.
And does it help with achieving goals too? Practical stuff.
Definitely. Meditation and concentration are presented as the tools you use to focus the mind's incredible power. You learn to direct that focused energy towards fulfilling your constructive desires, opening doors that seemed locked.
Like successful people do.
The summary notes that successful people often value concentration highly. They go deep within their own minds to find solutions and insights. So, learning to withdraw your attention from constant distractions and concentrate properly is portrayed as key to attracting what you desire.
And the ultimate result of practicing meditation regularly.
According to the source, it leads to experiencing a state of inner bliss, regardless of outer circumstances. And from that state, you naturally start to radiate more love and positivity out into the world. It's seen as fundamental for both inner peace and outer effectiveness.
Wow. Okay, so we've really covered a lot from this summary. From Yogananda's own incredible story, the early experiences, finding his guru through these really profound spiritual ideas like self-realization and divine love.
Right into very practical principles. How to live with purpose, take responsibility for your thoughts, use your willpower, manage fear, foster creativity, build good habits, and crucially, how to use meditation and concentration to tie it all together.
It's quite a potent mix of philosophy and, well, actionable advice, all seen through the lens of his life and teachings as presented in this summary. Thinking about these points really can offer you a different angle on things like success or fear or just how much influence you might actually have over your own life.
It definitely challenges conventional thinking on many fronts.
Right.
It's a lot to take in and reflect on, for sure.
It really is.
And maybe if there's one really provocative thought to leave you with, something to chew on from this whole dive into the source material,
Yeah.
it's that core assertion. Your mind is the creator of your reality.
That's a powerful statement.
It is. The summary strongly suggests that by consciously, deliberately focusing your thoughts, by harnessing that dynamic willpower we talked about, you have the capacity to shape your destiny, to attract what you truly desire. It fundamentally challenges that feeling many of us have of being powerless, just subject to whatever life throws at us.
So the question becomes, where are you putting your focus? What reality are you creating with your thoughts and your will day by day? Definitely something to think about long after this conversation ends.